Hello friends, today we shall learn about the new topic ecosystem and energy flow. Now this is a new topic of TEL science, the ecosystem and the energy flow. Now what is about the ecosystem? The ecosystem means it is a self-regulating and self-sustaining structural and functional unit of nature is called ecosystem. Now all these living organisms, they are found in this ecosystem, means some organisms are biotic and some are the non-biotic organisms. Now these are the components, means biotic components means the living organisms and abiotic components means non-living things. They are included or they are present on the environment. Now, firstly, Tansley, the scientist, studied the ecosystem, firstly following this ecosystem, and now this ecosystem is vary or greatly in size from small ponds. This ecosystem is converted to the small ponds to the large ocean, or the small or also small farmland to village. Now this type of the ecosystems, they are converted small or larger size. Now this ecosystem, it is a self-regulating sustaining structural and functional unit of the nature, and they are available for the biotic as well as the abiotic components are found in the ecosystem. Now the ecosystems, they having the two basic categories like the forest and aquatic. These are the two types of the ecosystem. Now the terrestrial ecosystem and aquatic ecosystem. Now the terrestrial ecosystems is present the forest or grassland or desert. These are the different types of the ecosystems. They are included in the forest ecosystem. And now the other are the aquatic, means they are found in the water bodies. Now these aquatic ecosystems like some lakes, wetlands or rivers, means the conversion of this ecosystem into forest. Now these are the two types of the ecosystems are found on surrounding environments. Now this ecosystem is also classified into two main categories or two main classes like the natural ecosystem and artificial ecosystem. Now this ecosystem is classified into two types. This ecosystem is classified into two types: natural ecosystem and artificial ecosystem. These are the two types of the ecosystems. Now this natural ecosystem means they do not require any human interference in the natural ecosystem. Human interference is not takes place in the natural ecosystem. They are naturally followed, and artificial ecosystem, they are involved some human interference, and now these are the artificial ecosystem is formed. For example, farmland, fish tanks, even large ponds. These are the types of the artificial type of the ecosystem. Now the next important concept like the ecological succession. Next point, ecological succession. The first of all, the ecological succession, there are two types of the ecological succession or some steps like the primary succession and secondary succession. The first of all discuss the ecological succession. Now the ecological succession means the replacement of community by another organisms, or they can stable the stage and they can reach the ecological succession. Now this ecosystem, they can tend to change with the times and occurring the primary succession. The first type, ecological succession, having the primary succession. So what is about the primary succession? Now this primary succession, it is occur where there was no previous community. It is not found any community, previous community not present, and such community is called the primary. For example, barren rock or sand, this is the primary succession. Now this primary succession means the process that start where non-living organisms this primary succession is started for non-living organisms and were present before, like on newly formed volcanic island, and this type of the succession is called the primary succession. This primary succession, for example, it is occurring a newly formed or coaled larva as well as rocks and new created ponds, reservoirs, they are including in the primary succession. Now this primary succession is established a new biotic community. The new biotic community. The primary succession is formed by new biotic community, but this primary succession, it is a generally very slow process. It is a very slow process of primary succession, and they are involved hydrosphere and the lithosphere. Now these two types of the primary succession. Now the second type means secondary succession. Secondary succession. The secondary succession, when the succession is start on area previously colonized. This area is previously colonized area, and this secondary succession they has been started on this area. For example, the cut forest or also burned forest or land affected by flood. Now this secondary succession is occurring, these colonized areas. And now this next one point, what is the series? Now these are the two primary and secondary succession. Next new point, the series. Now this series means it is a sequential or sequence of developmental changes from the pioneer community to the climax community. Pioneer to climax. Pioneer community to climax. This is another term like the series. Series means this conversion of this community. Pioneer community is converted to the climax. And now this is a series, and there are two types of the series. Means the organism, they are first series stage, it is a pioneer stage, and later they can convert into the climax. And now all the serial sequential stages, they can constitute the series, and this series depend on the substrate and where the succession is begun. Now there are two types of the succession, the hierarch succession and Hydrate succession. Now the first type is hierarch succession. Now this hierarch succession is started on the barren rock. Now this succession is starting on the barren rock, or they can form the dry habitat. This succession, hierarch succession, is started for the barren rock. This community is developed on this barren rock, and first plant is found in this rock is the lichens. You know, the lichens is firstly present on this barren rock. They can found, this lichen is found in this barren rock, firstly in the Girard's condition. You know, the lichens means lichens is with a symbiotic association in plants, means the algae and fungus is found and form the new groups is called the lichens. Now this lichen is formed in this rock region or barren rocks, and this rock is converted into the soil. Now this lichen, now this succession which is a start on this dry habits, sandy soils and barren rocks, and now this type of the succession is called the Girard succession. And the Girard succession began this growth of lichens is formed, and they can responsible for weathering this rock weathering is takes place, and they can convert into the soil. Now these two stages, the formation of soils and later this community or the succession is occurring the small annual plants. The first plant is present or this first plant is formed, it is a herb. The smallest plant is produced in this community, Girard community. The annual plants, only 1 year lifespan of this plant is present, and they can form on this soil, the barren rock. They can convert to soil and form the first plant is the smallest annual plant is produced. Later next stage of this Girard succession, later the perennial herbs, grasses are produced. Now these grasses are formed. This second stage means the perennials means this plant they can lifespan of the plant is 1 to 2 or 3 or more years this plant is grow. Now the form the herbs plant, herbaceous plant is formed, later the grasses, and now the next formation of succession is formed the grasses, shrubs. With the first stage of plant is herb, it is the smallest plant, and later the herbs are developed. It is a length is increases of these plants, so the height is increases. Now these shrubs, and they can form the shady into the lawn trees. And last step, these plants is produce the trees. Now the shady tolerant trees are formed in the last step of the Girard succession. Now these conditions series means this pioneer is convert to the climax, means first plant is produced on the barren rock, means this barren rock is the first succession. Girard succession is takes place in the dry condition, and later this lichen is produced on the rock, and later the first annual plant is produces, later the perennial herbs, later the shrub, and last step the tallest trees are produced. Means this is one of the conversion of the Girard or Girard succession. Means the succession firstly started on the dry habitat, sandy soils and barren rocks, and later they can convert the small plants are formed, and later the mosses and herbs, shrubs, and last step the trees are formed in the Girard condition or community. Now the next succession, Hydrate succession. The second type of succession, Hydrate succession. This Hydrate succession, this succession is started from the water. This succession is start in water. Now these hydrosphere pioneers are the submerged hydrophytes. And now the hydrilla is an example, means this hydrate succession takes place in water body, and this succession started from the water and later this plant is converted into the trees, and this conversion takes place. There are some steps are involved in the hydrate succession. The first stage is phytoplankton. This hydrate condition, the plants is found in the water bodies, and this first step of the hydrate is phytoplankton stage. Phytoplankton stage means some organisms are found in the water body, means like the microscopic plants is present in this water body. It is the first stage of the hydrate succession. Now the next stage is the submerged stage. Second stage is submerged stage. Submerged stage of plant. This plant is present inside the water. It is present the water bodies. Plant is found in water, submerged below the water surface. This plant is not present in the above the water. They can present below, means the submerged stage. And next stage is the first stage, second stage and third stage of the hydrates. It is a submerged and free floating stage. Submerged and free floating stage. And free floating. This condition of water, means this hydrate succession takes place in water bodies. Some plant is found in water below the water surface, and some plant is a free floating. Now some are found in the upper surface of water body. This is the first, second and third stage of the hydrate condition. Now the fourth stage is the reed swamp stage. This fourth stage the plants is found or they can produce in the water bodies. This is the fourth stage, is a reed swamp stage. In this stage, the plant submerged, free floating, later convert this plant into the reed swamp stage, and later the marshy meadow stage. Next stage, the marshy stage. This stage, the plants is increase the height of the plants. This stage, this marshy meadow stage, and later the shrubby stage, and the shrub is converted into the climax forest. Now the next step, the shrubby stage. this stage are formed the shrubby plants. Shrub like trees are formed. It is a shrubby stage. And last stage, the tallest trees are formed. On this stage, the large climax formation, and now the last trees are formed. These are the climax forest. Last step, climax forest is formed. Now this hydrate succession. Now the hydrate succession, first step is a phytoplankton stage. Now these phytoplanktons means the some smallest organisms or smallest plant is found in this stage, and the the pioneer stage are the submerged stage, means they can found some aquatic plant, for example hydrilla. Later they can convert this hydrate succession is followed by next step is a submerged and free floating stage. Now this submerged stage means the some plants is found in water body and others are free floating, means they can found in the water surface. Like the many plants are present in the water surface. This stage, like the root initiation or the root floating angiosperms like the lotus, or some free floating plants like the pistia, or then red swamps like the typha. And these red swamp plants is the typha, they can increase the height of the plants. Later the marshy stage, and later the shrub and trees. Means shrubby condition, this hydrate succession is occurring in water, but later they can convert into the terrestrial form. Now the trees are formed. The last step of the hydrate succession, means the climax again would be the forest. With the passage of the time, the land, the water body is converted into the land. This is a second succession of hydrate succession. Now the next one point, what is the lithosphere or xeroarch? Xeroarch means the xeroarch, it is a succession on barren rocks. And now the different stages of the xeroarch means the lichen stage, mosses, and annual grasses, and later the perennial grasses, and they can convert into the shrubby stage. As well as the hydrosphere is also same. This succession is takes place in the water, and now the series is develops on the water surface, and this phytoplankton is converted into climax stage like the trees. These are the ecological succession, the primary as well as the secondary succession, and they can involve the hydroarch and xeroarch condition. Now stop here.